Okay. Our final inductee hates it when I mention that he never won a state wrestling championship. So because he is twice my size, I have decided not to mention that he was a two-time state runner-up from Janesville High School. But what I will mention that his career beyond high school was exceptional. During his career at the University of Nebraska, he won 3 Big 12 titles. He placed in the top 3 at the NCAA tournament 3 consecutive years. He won an individual NCAA championship in 1995 in Iowa City as a sophomore. And he was the winner of the Gorian Award for the most falls in the least amount of time in 1997 NCAA tournament in Cedar Falls, Iowa. His overall college career record was 157-21 with 72 falls, which ranks him first on the all-time list of wins at the University of Nebraska. Internationally, he was just as successful. He won U.S. Open titles in 1998, 2005, and 2006, made world teams in 2005 and 2006, and was a world bronze medalist in 2005. He is currently the only native-born Iowan to win a medal at the World Championships in the super heavyweight division. And it is worth mentioning that he was 7-0 against Steve Mocco with 2 pins. He is the greatest heavyweight the state of Iowa has ever produced, and he's the 108th inductee into the Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame, Tolly Thompson.
Thanks, Kyle. I usually call him Klingman. Me and Kyle go way back, way back. Thanks. I really don't need to say anything else. He kind of said it all. He does a good job. You know, for a guy in wrestling, since I've been done training, I've kind of watched people and learned and listened a little more and not focused on myself. And this guy here, him and a guy on our team, it's a big contest between who loves wrestling more. You know, this guy, for never wrestling, he ran track at UNI. He knows more about wrestling than I think anybody I know. If there's a fact, we argue about it, we talk, you know, so Klingman, thank you. Appreciate it. You know, thanks, the board that voted me on, that's awesome, I appreciate it. You know, the election committee, the fellow guy, us guys here that are getting inducted tonight, Jason, he coached me 1 year, I think it was. So I appreciate that. Quick story on that. Well, I had some issues underneath coming out of high school. I'll just leave it at that. And so I get to Nebraska as a redshirt freshman, or I set out a year in between high school and college. And I had him, and then we had a guy named Gary Albright. And Gary was what, around 350 pounds? Huge. Pro wrestler. Great guy. And I had Kelber. And after practice, I'd stay after, and I'd get Gary on me, on my back, and I'd put him on me. You remember. I'd put him on me for speed. Because a little, I'd like to say, a little sucker. Then I put Albright on me for thickness. And it was at the end of a workout, so I figured you probably remember those days. I'm a little thicker now than I was. So I was probably about 220 pounds soaking wet. You know, I want to thank the state of Iowa. You know, growing up here, it's a confidence thing, it's an identity thing. You develop a deep passion, you know, almost an arrogance, I think, you know, being from Iowa. You know, there's something about it, and I don't know what it is, and I'd like to shove it down every other state in the U.S. Just something about it. I don't know how to word it. It's just on my sheet here, something special, confident, you know. And so, but then you get to a certain point in your career, and you're like, well, I got to start relaxing and move on, and I still can't. So I still wrestle a couple times a week when I'm healthy. You know, I think from when I was 5 years old, when I started wrestling, I think I ran around in a singlet, an Iowa State singlet, with a robe. Back then they had robes, a headgear. I think I wore that more than I did clothes. And every uncle that came over, everybody that came around, I had a singlet on, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. You know, when I got older, Dad bought me my first wrestling mat. And I think this is the reason why I went to Nebraska, because it was red and white. So it's his fault. It wasn't black and gold, or it wasn't purple and gold, or it wasn't, Crimson Cardinal. So I'll blame that on him. You know, but as I get older, you know, it was more of, you know, I got to high school, you have setbacks. You know, you have setbacks. I think, you know, I think all through life you have setbacks. And it's how you deal with them. And so, and I think that's what our sport of wrestling's done for me, you know, because you're going to have setbacks till the day you die, obviously. But you're going to have setbacks and you just got to learn to deal with them. And I've had them pretty much all through my career. You know, I haven't had one lately, which is good, but, you know, it's coming. That's a part of life. It's a part of life. And I've learned to deal with that, you know, and just when they come, you just hunker down, you get tough, and you think back to what you did when you lost one of your first matches, or how you felt when you won a big match. You know, and you get your confidence back. So, you know, that's what it is. That's what it is. You know, I'd like to thank my high school coaches, my kids club coach, Marty Dickey. He was inspirational to me. You know, he didn't have to help me out. He stuck with me. You know, my high school coach is Don Mortimer, and I think the assistants were Mark Arges. And then I had two high school coaches because one retired during the time. I had Jeff Gard, and then I had Todd Lappy. You know, college, you know, I had Coach Newman, Coach Cody, obviously he was there for a year, Coach Penrith. But, you know, when I went to Nebraska, one of the biggest things I learned is I had a partner. You know, I was 220 pounds, and being in high school, you didn't have that every day. And so Mark Cody, which he's the head coach at Oklahoma now, he got me to the next step. He got me to the next hump. And I think it's kind of a blessing, you know, like he said, getting out of Iowa, which it's not a good thing, but I mean, having Cody and a partner and a coach and a friend, you know, a guy that developed me, it was huge, and give me that confidence back. So, you know, that guy, and you can see his track record, it's probably one of the best in America for heavyweight coaches. And I was just happy to be one of his first ones, so lucky enough to be. So that was a big part of my life. International, I'm not going to go into that. There's too many guys to mention. But I was real fortunate to have, you know, places I could go train, you know, and people to support me around the country. You know, some kids, they helped me for 11 years while I trained. You know, Iowa, I come back to Iowa, I train in Iowa City, I train in Ames, I go all over, you know, I go anywhere where I think I could get better, you know, and that's one of the things that Mark did teach me at Nebraska was, you know, from when you're 5 years old to when you die, you never stop learning, ever. You know, whether it's in life, but mostly, you know, my whole life was wrestling, so don't stop learning in wrestling. And I'm still at that point in my life. I can learn something from my little nephew over there sitting, I'm going to try to learn it. And I don't care if you know, he's 5 years old or 8 years old or 6 years old. You know, if I can learn something, I'm going to learn. So, you know, I want to say some thanks to my family. I got a big group here tonight. You know, thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it. I got my sisters, their brother-in-laws, all their kids, my father, his wife Rox, my aunts, my grandma, my uncles. You know, and those guys, when I said the wearing the headgear and the singlet around, they're all going like this. Because I tortured everybody. So, because I just loved it. I loved everything about it. You know, then finally, obviously, I'm married. My wife's sitting over here, Tracy. She's a trooper. She's a trooper. I don't know if I'd want to be in her shoes and put up with me on a daily basis. I don't know how she does it, really. You know, my girls are over here. Peyton, Kendall, and Bree. Kendall tried to write my speech tonight, but I left that one in the car. She's working on it all the way up here. So she did a pretty good job with it. You know, getting back to, you know, family, life, you know, and it's what you learn. I think as I got older, I learned more to relax and enjoy the process. You know, learn and enjoy the people around me, you know, and just develop off that. You know, and there were some deep goals and some, you know, I wanted to be a world champ, I wanted to be Olympic champ, you know, and I don't know if I realized that soon enough. I didn't realize that when I was 5 years old, or, you know, I think it was always there, but I didn't tell myself that. And, you know, once I got to college, you know, Mark would say, hey, you're going to be a national champ. He'd introduce me as a national champ, and I was barely winning matches. I was working construction, building basements. You know, funny story there. He told me one time, he goes, "You're the best construction worker wrestling today." I'm the only one. You know? But he always had a funny way of putting it, you know. So it was easy, it was fun. So, you know, I trained for a long time after college. You know, I trained for like 11 years. Klingman had it wrong. He had 8. Get it right next time. Yeah, that was a Big 8 champ. I was the last one. 2-time Big 12. Put that on your notes. So, all right, Klingman? And I got a lifesaver for you. Every time I see him, I give him a lifesaver. Saving his life one day at a time. Me and Klingman are buddies, though. That's all right. So, but getting back to what you know, after college, I trained for a long time. You know, 12, 11 years. You know, Tracy was. If I wouldn't have had a steady home group, I had Dad taking care of rental houses for me when I was overseas. I had my wife and the kids at home. You know, and she pretty much gave me free reign to go, and I was gone probably 5-6 months out of the year. I'd be overseas everywhere, and she never said a word, you know. And so that to have a support group like that, you can't do it that long, and not have a serious support group at home. And you know, she deserves. That's probably why I'm getting her gray hair now. So, but you meet a lot of people through those years, you know, and a lot of great relationships, and you know, I think a lot of us, you know, you take for granted some of that stuff, you know, after time. You know, we're talking over here, if you're from a different state and you walk in here and you're a little kid wrestler, you'd be in awe. I know I would have been when I was 5 years old. All these national champs, Olympic champs, world champs, you know, state champs, which I'm not, Klingman, thanks. I always got to bring that up. But you know what? You know, that was probably, at the time, it was probably the worst thing in my life. But today I can sit back and I can laugh about it because it motivated me. It put a chip on my shoulder the size of that pond right out there to our left. And it, you know, I used it as motivation. I still use it as motivation because it's something, you know, you young guys out there in the crowd, it's something you can never get back. You got 4 years of high school and you can't get that back. You got 4 or 5 years of college and you can't get that back. You know, you got as many years as your body will hold up to train, and I took well advantage of that. So, you know, it was a good run, and I appreciate, you know, setbacks, injuries. You know, you learn from them, you get down, but then you get back up the next day. So, and I'm going to end with, you know, Klingman was a big part of me getting on this, and I told him from the day one that he needed to write my speech. And so he did, and I had to write my own. That's why it's getting a little windy. If he would have wrote it, it'd have been short and to the point and done. So, again, thanks.
Thank you, presenters. Congratulations to our new inductees. These 4 gentlemen are now members of a select group of native Iowans who make up the Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame. And it's with great pleasure that the Board of Directors coordinates these ceremonies. Congratulations to all 4 of you once again. One more recap, and then Coach Gable's going to come up and talk about Let's Keep Wrestling and the drive to keep wrestling an Olympic sport. If you were here in 2003, that was a special night. We inducted an uncle and 2 nephews, Joe Frank and Jim and Joe Gibbons. And it was special because of that, but it was special also because one of the 3, and it wasn't Joe or Jim Gibbons, but one of the 3 set a record for the acceptance speech. I think it was about an hour. So we had to set up some rules after that night, but it was a great event. Of course, Joe coached up at Fridley, Minnesota for a long time, won hundreds of dual meets, and Jim and Joe Gibbons wrestled at Iowa State. They won 7 state titles between them, and they were 7 All-American medals between them, and they both were national champions. So they were inducted in 2003. Okay, Coach Gable.